Hey everyone, Wezesha Wednesday, Ichi here. I'm gonna keep it nice and short today. So today I've been pondering on something, right? So last week when we did Wezesha Wednesday, we talked a lot about, your resolutions for 2025. We went over the fumble principle again. So today I was talking to a mentee, college student, and they told me something that I hear all the time. They said, well, here's my resume, take a look at it, tell me what you think. And the first thing I saw on the resume was my objective is to work in a company that blah, 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 blah. And this is something I've talked about before, but it bears repeating. And I told the mentee, well, your resume talks about what you want. I want to work in a company that my objective is to get ABC. Here's the problem with that. As a hiring manager, especially at the first instance, I don't really care about what you want. I don't really care about what you want. What I care about is what value can you provide to me? And this is something I continue to have discussions with mentees, with college students, even with really advanced professionals, where the lens that they use is what is it that I'm seeking from this company, this psychological contract, this reciprocal expectation that this is what I should get. And what I want to talk about today is to step back a little bit and reframe it and say, what value can I provide to this person? And so the title of my Wezesha Wednesday today is, I call it value worth. What is your value? How much is it worth? So what is your value worth? I don't know if maybe it's a new word. I don't know if it is, you heard it here first. But seriously, what is your value worth? I want us in 2025, and really quick, like the first part of 2025, like within the next week, I want you to sit down and think through what is your value worth? What is it that you're providing that actually gives to the other person a perception of how much they can pay you for? And that grows across all boundaries. Even in corporate, your value is a function that will be used for your advancement, for your hiring, for promotion, everything. The perception of what value you're providing to the company. As a coach, there's a lot of coaches out there. The perception of what value you're providing is what increases the value, or the perception of what value you're providing is what increases your value worth. And that's how you're able to get more customers, more clients, and reach more people. So what is this value? It feels like it's an abstract term, but what I'm going to try to do today is talk through actually one of my favorite books. I read this book, I don't know, like 20 years ago, The Discipline of Market Leaders. Really good book. If you haven't, please read it. It's really short. But what it talks about is how do companies differentiate themselves from one another? And what they argue is that companies can differentiate from one another using three primary buckets, and that's what they call the discipline. So the disciplines, I'll read it out here. The three disciplines that they talk about in this book are operational excellence, product leadership, and customer intimacy. Obviously, there's a ton of micro value adds that a company provides, but it's really these three at a macro level: operational excellence, product leadership, customer intimacy. So what does that mean? Operational excellence is when companies provide sort of middle of the market products at the best price. So operational excellence is when companies, I used to work for a company, when I worked for Verizon, operational excellence was their main thing. How can we cut costs in such a way that we provide value to our customer by competing with low cost? And that's what Walmart does, right? Very competitive, highly competitive, and the value The market leadership value they're providing is operational excellence so that you can go in and buy something at the lowest price possible. Because when you go to Walmart, you're going to get the right price, right? So that's operational excellence. The second discipline they talk about is product leadership, defined as product leadership. These companies concentrate on offering products that push performance boundaries. Their proposition to customers is an offer of the best produce. So the best, and these type of companies are known for product leadership, right? So these are the customers, or these are the companies who it's all about innovation. You're going to pay for this product. They're not going to sell it cheap. You're going to go and pay, $1,000 for a MacBook. You're going to pay, $1,300 for an iPhone. You're not going to pay $20 for it. They are not in the business of operational excellence. They're in the business of product leadership. And actually, this is what they say, right? For these ones, is product leaders don't build their positions with just one innovation. They continue to innovate year after year, product cycle after product cycle, right? So they give a lot of examples here, a lot of tech examples, but also athletic apparel and athletic footwear. So the second discipline is product leadership. Are you a product leader? Meaning the value that you're giving is not on the lowest price, but it's on constant innovation. And you demand that the customers who come to you pay those high prices, and you reciprocate by constantly innovating. The third one is customer intimacy. Customer intimacy is adherence focused on delivering not what the market wants, but specific customer want. It is defined through customer intimate relationships. Customer intimate companies do not pursue one-time transactions. They cultivate relationships. And so an example they give in this book is like Nordstrom's, right? You have a customer, a client who's been there years, generations, because they value that relationship that they have with Nordstrom's. It's not the cheapest like Walmart. It's not a one-time buy like, I don't know, whomever, right? It's all about customer intimacy. So why am I using the discipline of market leaders to talk about value worth today? And how does that even go back to my discussion earlier about mentees who come and say, my objective is to work ABCD? So here's the thing. You have to define what your value worth is. You have to be very intentional about what that value worth is, or what the definition of that value worth is. You have to work on creating that value worth so that the perception of the people with whom you talk are able to see that value worth that you're offering to them. Again, it's not what I want, it's what the customer perceives of what I'm offering. I like using my coaches, as examples, right? Like Jane Mukami is, one of my favorite. Jane Mukami, it's interesting. I've watched her for over 20 years, right? I've known her for a really long time. Jane, if you're listening, I'm about to talk about you, right? And if you're not listening, someone better share this with Jane so that she gets her flowers today, right? What is it that Jane Mukami offers? Is it weight loss? I think it manifests itself as weight loss, but truly what it is an uplifting spirit of empowerment. An uplifting spirit of empowerment, meaning she creates a structure where weight loss is the outcome that you get, but what you actually end up doing is going through a journey that uplifts your wellness, uplifts your empowerment. And I think that's what she offers. That's why she has so many people year after year, day after day going after her. Because the perception of what they get, the value worth that she's providing is not just weight loss, it's the upliftment of empowerment. And I say the same for Gina Darrow, who, by the way, Friday at Vivo will be there, 5:30 p.m. Atlantic Station. What is it that Gina offers? Like, what is that thing, right? It's the value worth, it's the perception that customers and clients get when she talks to them and inspires them in such a way that that it brings out the best in them. And yes, the outcome may look like vision boards, etc., but it's you being able to enhance your value worth, not only for yourself, but for those with whom you interact. So let me bring it home a little bit. What is your value worth? If you sit down and reflect on what it is that you are worth, what value you bring to someone. I'd like for you to do that, right? On the left-hand side, I'd like you to say, these are the things that I bring. I'm a good person. I bring this skill set. I bring this talent, etc. Then on the other side, I want you to remove yourself, like abstract yourself and say, what value do people perceive that I give them? Now, this is probably not an exercise you can do by yourself. You probably need someone to talk through and say, hey, by the way, you're really good at this thing, because that's how you identify that value worth, and that's how you can jump on that value worth and make it better. Or if it's something you actually don't like, you can get away from it. Let me give you an example. So, for years, I was the quote unquote go-to person for a lot of operational things at Verizon. Oh, we need to, I don't know, cut expenses. Let's go to Ichi. Okay, Steven, government name. Right? So I found myself always doing all these things, but yet I was never getting promoted, by the way. I was just like doing all these things. And I remember one time I changed roles and I spoke to one of my VP friends, Gina, and I told her, hey, so I'm doing this project, blah, 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 blah. And she said, yeah, you've always been the person who can fix things. You're a fixer. And I was very excited. I was like, yeah, I'm a fixer. Then I went home and I said, oh my goodness, that's the perception that they have of me, is a fixer. Not necessarily a leader, but just a fixer. Oh, this thing needs to be fixed, give this guy. That needs to be fixed, give this guy. But when it comes to leadership, promotion, etc., oh yeah, that's a fixer. And I'm not saying that was the case, but now as I reflect back, I had given a perception of what my value was worth, and I needed to correct that. And I've done a lot of correcting over the years, is to figure out what is my value worth, how can I enhance it, and then I have laid that out is what I'm willing to offer the company, what I'm willing to offer all of you through Wezesha, is finding out what is it that the customers, the clients, the cross-functional teams that I work with, what is their perception of what my value is worth in this relationship? So again, I said I'll keep it brief. I'm not going to do the 30 minutes. I'll keep it 15 minutes. There is a way for you to increase your value worth. Those of you in corporate, coming soon, Corporate Strikes Back is going to be on Wezesha. I have 5, not just 4, 5 speakers lined up. Someone in tech, in engineering, finance, banking. It's going to be exciting. And each of these people, I'm going to ask them, how do you increase your value worth in corporate? I already know the answer, but obviously I want them to tell me. But here's what I will tell you. You increase your value worth in corporate typically by 3 things. Many things, but these 3 things are probably the most important. One is increasing value by showing that you can lead transformational projects. And that's a big thing. How can you take a concept, organizational change, and craft it into a framework that allows you to deliver value with said scope in said time, right? And be able to provide that value and turn it over to the company. So they come to you and they say, we need to do X. And you take that thing, X, very ambiguous X, and you turn it into a project that has beginning, that has an end, right? That has a scope, that has a schedule, that has a cost, that has a quality, that has an output. And throughout the time that you're working through that project, you go through all this governance, keeping people informed, developing trust. And that becomes an artifact of value that you've provided. So that's one way. The second way is improve something, right? Process improvement is a big thing. I've talked about it before. There's a lot of frameworks out there, but it is basically saying it takes you 5 years to get this amount of revenue. I'm going to accelerate so you get it in 3 years. How about that? That is value. Or, wow, you've been spending $1 million on these things. I'm going to find a way to reduce that spend from $1 million to $500,000, a 50% reduction. That's a big thing. That is providing value. And the third thing I would say is leadership. The biggest asset companies have is people. How are you able to mobilize people and lead them, motivate them, performance manage them, promote them, and give them that psychological contract they're seeking? That's a skill set called leadership. So I would argue that those are the three main things. Of course, there's a lot of other things, but three main things that, in addition to the skill, the technical skill you have, the academic learning you have, that you're able to provide value to others. Again, it's not about you and what you want and what you think. It's about the perception or the perceived value that people see from your value worth. So I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to spend time, talk to friends, reach out to me directly if you want. I'd love to help you go through this. And let's go through an exercise of saying, what is your value based on your perception, your skills, what you've learned, blah, blah, blah. And what is the perception of your value worth from others? And if we come up with a framework similar to this, where you say, okay, you know what? I'm a Walmart. I give low cost so I can get volume, and people know that they can come to me for low cost and I can get things done. Or people come to me, they're going to pay a lot of money, right? Monga, they're going to pay a lot of money, right? But what they get is innovation. Over and over again, I'm giving them a renewed sense of what it is that they're doing. Or the third thing, and again, that was like, Apple, etc. Nike, my son, Jordans. How do they pay that amount of money? It's because, yeah, okay, this thing can do this. They're always innovative, right? And then there's the customer intimacy. I want to have a personal relationship with this person. And that's where the value worth comes from. So that's from the disciplines of market leaders. Bringing it home for you on a personal perspective. Even if you're in corporate, think about what I said about providing value. And I also want you to reevaluate like your LinkedIn profile, your CV. Does it talk about the value you provide or you can provide as evidenced by these artifacts of projects you've run, process improvements you've been part of, or leadership that you've done? Or is it talking about I want? Lastly, to my coaches out there, I know there's a lot of coaches out there, Gene, Jane, like Monga, there's so many of you. And I love the value that you're providing to us. And you may think that the value you're providing is based on, the flyers you put out and the things that you say. But I'm curious, have you really explored what is it? What's that value worth that you're providing that makes us come over and over and over and over again to you? And if you don't know what that is, come to me, we'll figure it out. Because I think it's important to be very intentional when it comes to your value worth. So that's my segment for today, Wezesha Wednesday. What is your value worth? And I'll say it again. Okay, actually not again, but let me define what value. Value is defined as the extent to which a service's worth is perceived by its customer to meet needs and wants. The extent to which a service's worth is perceived by its customer to meet needs or wants. So again, it's not about what you're giving. It's about the perception of what the customer thinks they're getting from you. And let's explore what that is. For you, corporate, Wezesha Corporate Strikes Back. Coming in a couple of weeks, 5 great people who are going to come and blow your mind and talk about value creation in corporate and why they still want to stay in corporate even though they can go and do self-employment. Peace. I'm out for my game. Cheers.